this meeting of the policy subcommittee to order. First policy to review, before we get into the MASC stuff, is a couple things that came up. So the school facilities. There's still a question on this one about who's responsible to pay what.
Right. I was thinking about this one, should we hold, because we're waiting for the lease to be returned from Berlin.
That was going to be a question, yeah.
Yeah, and we don't have that back yet. We submitted one that didn't address this, but I don't know what they're going to come back and do, and we haven't gotten that back yet. They gave us the template, we sent it to Kim, we made the adjustments, sent it to them. The school committee voted on it.
Yeah.
So I would just suggest we hold on this before we see what they have to say and what we agree on. That's my suggestion on it. I don't know if
All right. Yeah, I think that's reasonable, but like I'd asked Julie for how much money the basketball league and the rec league spend on it, because that was the big thing. They
Mm-hmm.
charge the basketball league for the janitors, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, they do spend a few thousand a year on it. It looks
Right.
like.
So the Boylston pays, that's what we were trying to explain. Boylston's been paying for the custodian for years.
Boylston rec leagues.
Boylston rec league.
Yeah. Okay.
Berlin has not.
Right.
So that was one discrepancy, I think, in just even
Yeah.
having them in place, and then the cost of that for the programs.
So I think the issue. So Boylston rec leagues pay for it, but Boylston school takes care of the gym and the floor and all the necessary expenses that go along with the building.
Yes, the custodian, right.
I mean, it's all coming from the town one way or the other.
It is.
But in Berlin, it's a unique situation. If they are paying a few $1,000s per year, I mean, do we swap that a couple $1,000s? Do we ask the town to swap that from rec to the school, and then the school takes care of it? Do we leave it with the rec, and maybe they charge an extra $20 a kid to play or something, and then the school picks up the cost of the janitor? Do we take whatever they spend on the building, the rec league spends on the building, do we take that off the cost of the janitor? So the issue is the schools want someone to be in the building during those times for safety, security reasons.
Right, and part of it too is cleanliness of the building, ensuring that somebody can clean up if there's a toilet that overflows. What happens now is Monday, if there's nobody there, Monday the custodians have to clean up in the morning from the weekend, because usually it's like a Saturday, Sunday, at least in Berlin. So they're responsible for that. It's only Berlin, because even Tohoto has a custodian there. So
this whole thing, it's a unique situation, a handshake deal between the town and the school, right?
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I think waiting to see what the lease fleshes out.
I think so too.
But to be fair, they are paying for. It's a unique situation because they're actually paying for a cost that the school normally would pay. Again, all comes from the town, whether it goes through rec or through schools.
Right.
But it is an expense that the rec league and potentially parents are paying into this for the actual building maintenance, which should be covered by the school, regardless of how it comes out. So
right, and that's what's coming up in Boylston, because, for example, they need new hoops over there. I guess there's been some issues with the hoops. Berlin may offer to pay for that at some point, like they do the floors, but Boylston doesn't do that.
Right.
They just pay for the custodian and then.
So in exchange for the rec league doing that, I think there should be some sort of, either it's going to continue on like that, and there should be some sort of leniency towards them, or we'll just change it, and then they won't have to pay for the maintenance anymore, but the schools will. I mean, it seems like those are the two options.
Right, and I think feeding into that is going to be the lease from Berlin, and then Boylston wanted to also. There's no lease from Boylston either at this point with the regional agreement. There should be leases that we have from these two.
Yeah.
April had asked about getting a copy of the template from Berlin. I think she wants to see what we come up with Berlin, and then take that and build it. But again, we're on hold waiting for that to come in from Berlin. So at this point, we've waived the fee for Berlin, so that's taken care of. We can wait until we get that. Hopefully, we're going to get it by the end of the school, by the spring. So
what's the holdup on that? I know we've tried to do this last year. We got nowhere. At least this year we have something.
Yeah, I don't know. I asked Megan. Julie was over there for something else with the fields, I think, and she was going to be talking to Kristen, and I asked Megan would she ask her if there's anything on the lease, but she said she didn't find out anything. So I can always, I'm sure I'll be seeing Kristen soon enough, so I can ask her about that, or I'll just give her a call.
I mean, yeah, it's up to the full committee, but I'd prefer to have it done before we go into the budget situations.
Okay, let me see what Kristen
That
has to
makes
say,
sense to
and
me.
I can give her a call myself. Happy to do that.
All right, so that's KF.
Yep. And next is
Carol, I'll tell you why I brought this up for the attendance policy. It's not necessarily to do with attendance, but it's the only thing I could find in there about student absence and dismissal for
Yep.
illness.
Yep.
So, this is admittedly a personal situation, but I have spoken with other parents who are in the same situation. We've got a kid who has missed a lot of classroom time this year because of being dismissed from school for illness, for a fever, which I guess the school is using 100-degree temperature as a
Yeah.
fever, when typically a fever is considered 100 point something, 0.4
Yeah,
usually.
yeah.
And so I'm concerned, I experienced it this week. The kid ended up going back to class because it was just elevated temperature from being outside, running around, and immediately, maybe he didn't eat the right food. My belly hurts, go to the nurse, okay, my belly hurts, oh, you've got a elevated temperature because you've just been running around, you've been outside on the bus, excited, all these things that contribute to this thing. And we got the call to come pick her up, as soon as she got off the bus, to come pick her up.
Okay.
So I went in there, and what's going on? She was perfectly fine this morning. She ended up going back to class, but that's when I realized that they're using 100 degrees even. So I wanted to know, how are we doing that across the 3 schools?
Yeah.
Is it being applied consistently?
Yeah.
And is it reasonable? Everything we've experienced with as parents, any daycares, schools, events, whatever, it's 100.4 is a fever, stay home, don't come back until you're under 100.4. We talked with our doctor about this, 100.4 is the number they go by. You look it up online, American Pediatric Association, Johns Hopkins, 100.4. I reached out to Jess, being a nurse.
Mm-hmm.
She says 100.4, given there's others, you've got to take into consideration other symptoms, is what she said. But 100.4 generally is fever to go home illness. My concern is not just our family, but other families, their kids are losing classroom time for something that's not medically necessary.
Mm-hmm. I think something that you just said that's going to be key is the consistency across the schools, particularly the elementary schools where they
Yeah.
do tend to go home. So, preparing for the meeting, I did some work with Lisa Lamb. I can give you some information on that. So there's the attendance policy. So, initially, she got this, when should I keep my child home? This is a sheet, and I can
Yeah.
pass it. This is a sheet from Berlin that they've used for years.
Yeah,
but,
that's what I saw earlier this
right,
week.
but
Yeah.
Boylston never saw this. When Lisa saw it, she's like, "Oh, I really like the way this is set up. I can show you." It says in here, if temperature is less than 100 degrees or 24 hours and has not had Tylenol or ibuprofen, or it says fever 100 or higher symptoms.
Yeah.
So my return to school. That's this. I can show you this. But then I spoke to Lisa. She says, yes, 100 degrees is a benchmark for many districts. So that's what she was telling us. But, hold on a second. She said the district nurses use a temperature of 100.0 Fahrenheit or higher as to when a student needs to be sent home. This has been our practice. It's a practice for quite some time, as well as in most school settings. A temperature usually indicates immune systems working to fight some type of infection, best to rest. Students aren't able to learn, doing their best. We use our best nursing judgment when assessing students and taking many factors into consideration. Students with a temperature greater than 100 degrees Fahrenheit need to stay out of school. So they're going by 100 degrees.
Yeah, what's that based on though? Because like I said, everything I looked up
Right.
was 100.4.
I don't know what it's based on. Honestly, I don't know. She just said that's what they've been using. I don't know also. So in September 2023, we had a current COVID guidelines. This was from Lisa at the time. but this was only around COVID based on the Department of Public Health recommendations, fever 100 degrees Fahrenheit or greater. So whether they've just been taking that number and applying it to everything is perhaps the reason. But I think it's worth looking at, and I think the place to look at it is with Lisa and the nurses, and to look at, like you said, what's recommended by the Pediatric Association and other medical pieces.
Because the problem I have with that, Carol, is you can have 100 temperature for any number of reasons. You're
Right.
upset about something. Your little kid's crying, running around on the playground. It's hot out.
Right.
Whatever it is, which is the situation that happened to me. By the time I got in there, it was no longer 100.
Yeah.
So it's happened more than once. I've had more than one parent say they've had the same problem. And kids are missing a lot of school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I think there's got to be a protocol put in place. And like you said, I think it's an elevated temperature. We're going to have to get a marker for that. I think it's going to have to be, and what other things are going on with that child as well. I mean, they could have fever and be vomiting, or be, something else going on with them.
Other symptoms, yeah. If the kid's throwing up in the middle of class, send them home.
Right.
But they just came in from the bus where they're excited and they're a little upset and they're warm.
Right.
It's not a reason to go home.
And part of the protocol should also be, what do the parent, in partnership with the parents, I think, what do you want to do here? Do you want me to hold so-and-so for a little bit? Do you want me to send them back, wait, come back? I mean, it's always, in part, it's a judgment call from both the school and the parents, I think, of whether or not they should send them home. Sometimes kids just come in sick, and that's the way it is.
I almost wonder if part of the protocol could be retake the temperature, have them sit still or rest in the office, take the temperature again in 10 or 15 minutes. Separate from the whatever the agreement becomes about the temperature. Just because you do make a valid point, like you're wearing heavy clothing, you're running around like you are. Remember when I had to take a reading to go into the orthodontist with Teddy when it was COVID. I walked in and she scanned my head and she said, "Oh my God, you have 102." And she looked at me, she goes, "Were you sitting in the sun?" I said, "Yeah, with my window open." She said, "Sit in the chair, I'm going to test you in 10 minutes. She tested me again, I was 98, but it was just the sun on my face.
That's the thing, right? So here's my issue. You know me. I'm a little more willing to discuss things for a little while with people before I just accept their answer. My wife's not. A lot of other parents maybe aren't. So they get a call from the nurse, your kid's sick, come get him.
Yeah.
They're going to say, "Oh my God, my kid's sick, I'm going to go get him."
Right.
That's going to take their entire day now is, I got to get an appointment with a doctor, which is nearly impossible now. Maybe I got to go to an emergency or urgent care clinic. That's a couple $100 cost to them. All to be told that the kid's fine, go back to school. This has happened several times to us personally this year. Jen usually takes care of it. She's a little more or less willing to not trust or have that conversation with the nurse. I'm obviously a little more interested in having those conversations.
Yeah. Well, and losing work too. I mean, it's hard to leave work in the middle.
Yeah, I'm not saying that we need to just dump kids off as a daycare service.
No.
But they're missing class time for something that's not, they come home and they're perfectly fine.
Yeah, it turns out to not be valid.
So maybe the practice needs to change, or I would personally like to codify it somehow.
Yeah.
So it's done consistently. Whether it's through policy or something else, I don't know. But
I'd lean to ask you, is this something that would go in under procedures? Policies and procedures?
Yeah, practice, procedure.
Yeah,
It
you're right.
feels more like a standard procedure that's followed. These are the steps that are taken. I don't know if I see it as a policy.
That's a good question. Do we have a policy on? We don't.
We don't.
Because
We
No,
have an
we don't have
attendance
a
policy.
specific policy on that. That's why I grabbed this attendance one, because it has dismissals in there, and I think somewhere in here for illness.
It reminds me when we added the procedures on for the, fingerprinting
Right.
and all that. So we had the policy,
Yeah.
and then below it we did procedures
procedures,
for that,
yes.
and added a separate piece. But that's something that I think that the nurses can work on, so they're across the board. Like I said, this sheet, when should I keep my child home? I think it's a guideline for parents to follow. Should that be updated? Perhaps, I don't know. But I think it, instead of something like this, I think there could be procedures in place so that and then it should also go into their handbooks.
Yeah, because not all parents are gonna, question oh, my kid's sick, okay, I'll go get him.
Right,
They're perfectly
right.
fine. So, I think 100, I think all the medical stuff we have, including Jess, is 100.4. I don't know why we can't just go with that and save these kids some time. Of course, if they come in and, you know, clearly they're sick, they're throwing up, or their temperature doesn't go down after a few
Right.
minutes, or I don't know, whatever.
Again, it feels like part of it's a judgment call if the nurse can call. I would always imagine as a parent, the nurse would
I
call
would
me
hope
and
so,
say,
right? A
here's
judgment
what's
call.
going on, what do you think we should do? Do you want to
Right.
wait a few minutes? That's how it was always
That's not how
presented
it's
to me.
happening, though.
So that's,
Yeah.
okay, so that's probably where the
It's more
challenge
chick,
lies.
okay, it's 100,
Yeah,
come get your kid.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's the conversation. And
Yeah.
Lisa's the head nurse,
Okay.
so I can speak with her about that so that they get on the same page. I think that's it. It's up to, I mean, in the end, if you want to change the policy, but my suggestion would be to do a procedure with this once they get,
Yeah,
having them
either way, so
examining
long as
this.
it's being done consistently
Yeah.
with the
Yep,
aim is to keep kids in the
yeah.
classroom.
And to Lori's point, too, I mean, if we go with 100.4, they made a guideline here for 100, but over a period of time,
Mhm.
because it could be that very reason, especially in the
Exactly.
summer when they're outside running around and they're all, so,
Well, and I think Mike said she had been outside and in a heavy coat and everything too, so.
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, we got to the bottom of it, but I had to go into the school, I had to talk with her,
Yeah,
question the kid, what happened, you came straight from the bus, what happened on the bus. We got to the bottom of why the situation was happening.
yeah,
It had nothing to do with being sick. Okay? The nurse told me she took her, forehead temperature and ear temperature. Ear temperature was not 100. Forehead was 100. By the time I got there, forehead was then 99. So we got to the bottom of it. I know
Yeah.
what's wrong. We're dealing with an issue, but we're not the only parent who've had this issue.
yeah, had the issue, right,
So
right, we don't.
other parents out there might not go through all that. They might just accept, okay, send her out to the car, and now it's a whole day and a few $100s of trying to get a doctor's appointment to know that it's nothing.
All right, well, let me, I'll
I think-
certainly talk
I
with
think you
Lisa
made a good
about
point
this.
though about COVID. I think a lot of things have become habitual because of the protocols that we had. So
Yeah.
it's like, okay, this is what happens, this is what I do. And so it's a good time for another discussion. I like the idea of bringing all of the nurses together to see what they're doing across
Yeah,
the schools
yeah.
and what they, what their experience is.
If I catch Lisa now, I mean, I can call her later, there's the PD day coming up or the half day, maybe she gets together with them and gets on the same page, they can have that discussion that day, so, yeah, I think it has a lot to do with judgment
Yeah, yeah.
then, okay. All right, are you comfortable with that, or?
Yeah, let's see how that
Okay, let's see
goes.
how that goes.
Get an update at the next.
The next one, it's not English language learners, the policy AC in our book. We have non-discrimination policy, including harassment and retaliation, but I think were you looking for ELL?
I'm not sure, Laura, you probably know more about the MASC stuff than I do.
So is this the one, let me see. This is the one where, Carol, you had given us.
Oh, I know, I bet it's yeah. So I talked to Kim about this,
Mhm.
I'll tell you what she said.
Yeah, there's a whole strand. Kim is involved.
Yes,
and-
she
yeah.
is. I think we've resolved that. I guess, as long as you're comfortable with that, it's just adding in the this is in the bottom, we have a policy already on this. Kim said, yeah, just on the bottom of the letterhead, just add the words English language learners along with, like, we don't discriminate
Yeah,
against.
marital status, familial status, yeah.
The same ones,
Yeah.
and then they had suggested from, when we had the tiered focus monitoring prior to coming in, that we add that to the bottom of the letter. What's gonna be hard, if we keep adding, we're gonna be off. Letters are getting smaller and smaller, but we could, that's what Kim was recommending, just
Yes.
adding that. Do you wanna, can you read that, Lori, or do you want me to read it? I have it here.
Yes, so let's see, so the next steps, it seems we may want to include the following protective categories in our missionary statement. English language learners, which is in red, marital status, familial status, pregnancy or pregnancy-related condition, ethnic background, which I believe are already in there. And
Right.
recommended school committees to include in their AC policy. Oh, so that was in the stationary statement, which I don't,
Right.
not. The AC policy, add English language learners, because all of those are in there as well.
Right.
It's the non-discrimination, and Let's see.
So just add, so the issue is just to add English
Yep.
learners to the non-discrimination.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay.
And Kim came back and said, since it's already part of the district's policies, there's no need for the
Yes.
committee to approve adding the category to school district letterhead. It can be done by administration internally. So that
So
was.
there's no vote.
There's no vote.
Yep, just
I just
adding
wanted you
in.
to.
Yep.
When we left off, I
Mhm.
wanted to make you aware that
I'm
that
glad.
was what she had to say.
All right, so that will just get added and be good?
Yeah, we'll
All right.
just do that.
Yeah.
But I want you to know that we were
Thank you, I
changing
appreciate that.
policy.
Was there a change to BEDH comment at meetings?
No, we looked at these. I
I think we
have
looked
those
at it.
in
I
the
feel like-
past, and I wrote okay at the top of different,
Yeah.
and
That's what I
different.
thought too,
Did we
yeah.
ever vote on it though?
Maybe that's,
I feel like that might be the missing.
With the vote, with the full committee, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, because we definitely,
Although I feel
we
like
looked at
we
remote
might
learning,
have.
and wasn't there an issue with, no, that was with alternative school programs. There was an issue with home school programs being included in extracurriculars or something. And I thought we addressed that too.
we did address that. Yeah, we did.
Okay. All right, so let's move all the MASC, well, the BEDH, IH, and
BEDH we
IH.
discussed in our November 2nd meeting.
Yeah.
So I wonder, but I'm not sure if we voted on it.
Did we not get a vote in December?
I don't know if we did. I don't know if we put it on for first read. I'll have to double check.
All right.
That might be where it's.
Let me
So
look that
that's
up.
what we'll do.
From the
We'll just,
CDs.
put these off to
So
track
the-
down.
Yep, I'll track that down. That'll be
Whatever
fine.
happened.
Yep.
Yeah, in fact, I thought it was what we did as a first read, but maybe then it wasn't the vote on it.
That's what I'm
This-
wondering.
yeah, that's
And that would
possible.
be my fault, because I was supposed to get that over to Nicole.
Everything's your fault.
It is, as long as we admit it.
All right,
Ah,
and then back to the class size policy.
Yeah, so I've got that information.
So I think you were gonna get some more information
I
first,
did.
right? Yeah.
Yep, I have it.
Oh, great.
So generally, the response is no, they didn't want to put a policy in place for a specific number.
Mhm.
Cindy, and within that, there was a variation on that. Cindy felt there should be not a specific number, but a recommended number, similar to what you said had
Okay.
done, right? I still have that policy. And John said, and he says, I'm a hard no too. There's already recommended numbers on record. A hard and fast rule would present a variety of problems. For example, the hard number for grade 3 is 20 students, and I have 42. Do I really want to add another teacher? So that I can now have a class size of 13.
Mhm.
So the challenge with our schools is there are very different numbers that would be a limit, as class size limit in the two schools because of the size of the classroom. We saw that with the planning board, the numbers that John
Yeah.
provided. I have all of that information too.
Right.
I think something like Wachusett has, though, would be better, and I would love the principals to work on that with me. That's the one where, where did I
Is
just
that
have
the student to adult ratio?
Yeah, the student
Yeah.
to adult, a recommended number, not more than whatever.
That-
Or
I'm
a
more-
recommended number.
I'm more interested in that, like adding
Yeah.
aides or professionals to the room
Yeah.
when needed, right?
Yeah.
Now, I don't think I understood John's comment. Is he saying he would prefer a class of 42 rather than having 2 teachers split up the 42? I totally misunderstood.
Yeah, no, so if we had 20 students.
Oh, he would put 20 in one and then
20, and if we limited ourselves,
Right.
then we'd
So
have
you
2
don't-
left out.
Right.
You wanna be able to move one into one and one
I
into
So
the
a
other.
classroom of 21 is
I-
okay, but he doesn't wanna go to a classroom of whatever it would be 13 or whatever.
Right.
13.
Right, but you would split them in half. I don't think the class size policy was that we were trying to hit that number. I think it was that once we hit a number,
It's
we
more
would
about-
add support for the
Yeah,
teacher
that's
because it
more
would
what it
be,
is.
yeah.
Right. I
think
It was
that's
not
where
that you
you
had to
started.
have a number.
support instead of another teacher.
Yeah, not a full-on teacher, but I don't know, an aide or para or whatever you want.
Yeah, because you wouldn't want a class of like 6.
Because you'll get parent volunteers every now and then, but
Mhm.
you can't count on those. So
Right.
something we can consistently, we know if we're above this ratio, this teacher is going to get help. Whether that's just to manage the kids, help them move around, whatever it is, I
Yeah.
don't know, but
And particularly, I think that would apply more to the lower grades than the upper grades.
probably, yeah.
I could see that. Already having the kindergarten aides, I think, over in Boylston has been a huge help, and the
That's
one
great.
back into the kindergarten again on Berlin and asking for the other one this year. would be helpful to that kindergarten, but I know you're saying even first, second grade. I don't know about the upper grades so much. One of the reasons it's hard to say is they do have paraprofessionals going in there, but they're through special education. So there could be a number of adults in the room, you know.
But the special education, they're focused on a particular student, right?
It could be,
Some,
a child
yeah.
or a small group.
Yeah.
It just depends, right?
Personally, I would like at least one adult in addition to the teacher in every classroom, regardless of the size. I don't care about paying for it. I would prefer that. It's going to help everybody. Some days you'll need them, some days you won't need them. Maybe they could, on days they're not needed, float somewhere else where it is needed. That would be my preferred policy, is that we have a teacher and another adult, not counting the special ed that are assigned to particular groups or students. Just, you know, maybe the teachers don't want it. I don't know. Ask them. Do they want it?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's a further discussion.
Because the stories I'm getting are that it is wanted by parents, and maybe it can help with some sort of consistency in the classroom. You know, if the teacher has to go off for any reason, you still got another person there that you see every day in addition to the substitute, right? It doesn't interrupt as much, right? Because the kids aren't seeing a new sub every day. Maybe, I don't know, I'm just trying to think of new, different things if you want to improve. You want to get better, you want help. If they don't want it, then fine, tell us.
Yeah. I don't know, but can pursue that with the principals to talk with staff about that too, how they would feel about it, what grades, or certain times, if we had a pool of aides would be another option. I mean, I don't even know, this is kind of the first time I'm thinking about this, that would be able to be dispersed to different classrooms.
Because I know certain grades after COVID are having more issues than others. Based on the size, based on the kids' behavioral issues, interruptions, all that. Another adult would just help, right?
Right, exactly.
Preferably someone who's somewhat trained in schools.
Let me bring it to the admin team. I meet with them weekly and just discuss that. Now, are you just speaking to elementary?
I mean, I think so. I mean, middle school and high school probably, you know, they're moving around in classes, probably a different scenario. But maybe they need them too. Ask them, do they want some? I'm sure they'll take them. If they don't, they don't.
Okay. I'll bring that forward to them. Yeah, this is, I have the Wachusett one, and it just is a policy relating to education class size, recommended maximum class size. And that's their policy. It doesn't speak to aides, which is something different. This is just classroom teachers.
Yeah.
And what is their number?
K through 2 recommended 19 students. Grade 3 to 5, 22 students. Middle school 23, high school 23. Our middle and high school is different. It varies in size depending on the course that's taught, the number of students that are in there. So then they also mentioned specials in here excluded. So I think it also, as we've talked about with Berlin, it's the physical space in that building
limited.
that it's even different than Boylston. They physically cannot, and I have those figures too.
Yeah.
Add more children in there without overcrowding. It would not be.
I know the recommended number of Berlin is 18. What's the
18.
max?
I think he was looking at 18.
Yeah. Okay,
But,
that's what I thought.
he's over.
We're
In
over
fact,
that in some grades now.
Yeah, he has, where are we,
You got 21, 24 and some you
Yeah.
have like 12.
right. Yeah, he has, and for next year, he's looking at 32 students with 2 classes, with
For
an average class.
kindergarten?
Yeah,
32 in next year's kindergarten.
that's what he's predicting right now.
Right now it's what, like 24, something like that. This year's kindergarten is like 24, I think.
So is there only one kindergarten?
This year's kindergarten has 29.
29.
But there's 2 teachers, right?
2 teachers,
Yeah.
right? So you're looking at what, 14?
Yeah.
15 kids?
Nice number. But next year,
Kindergartens.
yeah, they'll
20
need
in
an aide.
first
No,
grade.
kindergarten's hard. It's like herding feral cats. I mean, you're trying to teach skills. But you, like I
I'd be
remember
careful.
when,
You be
well,
careful with you.
well, no,
Probably
I
classify
remember
kids
when my
there.
kids, they had Mrs. Lapierre and Mrs. Bjorn, Mrs. LaPierre was doing the skill building with talking to them, and Mrs. Bjorn's job was to go and say, okay, friends, hands to ourselves, settle, remember we're paying
Yeah.
attention.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
And it
yeah.
didn't interrupt the class. The flow went on and everybody
Oh,
was
yeah.
learning.
Yeah, it's
So
been
when I
really-
say hurting for okay, I mean these kids are not used to
I
sitting
know.
still.
Yeah,
But
it's
you're
been
right.
really, it's been so helpful, I think, in Boylston to have that person, and just even have the kindergarten aide back in Berlin between the two classes, have to have one extra pair of help
Yeah,
hands.
so I think what we're trying to do here, Carol, is more help. If it's wanted, if it's not wanted, tell us and we'll drop it and we
Okay.
won't bring it up again.
Okay. Okay. Alrighty.
Alright, I think that's the end of the agenda, yeah?
Oh,
Well,
Alright.
So we were doing IBH or IBHE, no?
We were gonna look into those and figure out
Oh,
whether they were voted on.
IBH, yeah, so I'm sorry, I didn't realize that was all of them. I actually printed this out for you. IBH, we did a first read. We were supposed to do a first read in,
Yeah, so I think the
Yeah.
the three I's here,
so I'll go through
Yeah,
those,
we'll-
yep,
we'll find
plus
out-
the BEDH.
yeah, we'll find
Yeah,
out,
I'll do that,
we'll take that off and
Yeah.
find out,
perfect.
yeah, so some things may have got lost in the shuffle.
I had started, but I need to add, I have like almost like a table that says the ones that we discuss at the meetings, and then
Alright.
what becomes a first read and what becomes a vote. So I'll try to go through the beginning of this year, fill that out, and then I'll continue to
Okay.
add to it.
Cool.
Lori, MASC, were you speaking to this? MASC bulletin they just sent in December, there's a whole list of new,
Kathy was still working on it.
policies from the newsletter, all on technology. And then Janelle had also given me one, this could be for our next meeting, but this is electronic messaging by school committee, district security relating to technology, data and records retention. We probably should look at those,
We
look
still
at
have a
those.
budget one too. There was one that was sent out, I think, in March of last year that was all budget related.
Hmm.
We were thinking about sending it over to the budget committee, but then we were like, well, we're policy.
Yeah, alright, we'll look at that.
Yeah.
And this would tie into that, this was from January 17th, 2024. Janelle brought this to my
Oh,
attention
thank you.
because we didn't know what to do. First Circuit upholds district's no video recording policy for IEP team meetings. So there's been
Okay.
questions at times about whether or not recordings can take place for
Mhm.
those
Do
particular
you
meetings.
record those meetings?
They're not typically recorded, no, they're not.
Somebody must have gotten in trouble somewhere.
Yeah, that's my guess.
Either that or somebody had requested a parent, but we have no policy on it.
Alright.
So, I think we have to make some decisions around that. So, I would.
Is that not covered by state laws about recording?
I think if you don't tell someone, it's illegal in the state of
Yeah.
Massachusetts, but if you tell them and
Then there's
everybody's,
nothing they can do.
then, yeah,
Alright.
then as long as they agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can speak.
Do you?
Yeah, do you know
Yeah,
that?
you probably do,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so it's wiretap laws, and Massachusetts is a two-party consent state, but consent just means that you're aware, it doesn't mean you agree to
do.
it.
Okay.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, consent is considered, so like, you see the camera and I'm recording it, and you could say, I don't wanna be recorded, like, tough break,
Right.
no,
Yeah.
you're being
Right.
recorded. So,
Right.
yeah, as
Gotcha.
long as you're not hiding it,
Right.
it's legal.
It's legal.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you, I did not realize
Cool.
that.
I wanna find
Yeah.
out
Good to
more
know.
from Kim about this as well, because it feels like IP meetings are,
I think those are personal, like, personal information, personal data meetings, right?
it could be, but a lot of the information that's shared in those
Is about
meetings
their
is
child,
confidential, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what
there
I'm
must,
saying.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely,
Personal.
so, but if a parent wants it, but if staff members don't want that, what is, I don't.
What is that,
Yeah.
so?
Or if staff members
So
want it-
everybody knows there's no disagreement about what was going on,
Right,
so yeah, bring in a witness or something, or, you know, have a friend come or something.
right, or they've
Options.
typically, parents have had advocates
I was
coming
saying
in
that,
to
yeah,
me.
yeah.
Yeah, so, but this is something different,
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
you know, with everything else that's technology, I
Right.
think related, but I would love to look at some of these, I'm curious about all of
Those sound
these.
really important, like
Yeah.
those seem really important.
Alright, we'll put that on, we'll try to do something in March.
Yeah, I wonder how, you know what I'll do, Nicole, I'll give these to you to look up with MASC and see how we can look at these ahead of time if we wanna do that for March. That would be a good.
Nicole, would you mind sending us a copy of that, just so we have a list of them? That would be so
Yeah.
great. I'm sure we can find it on their website, probably with links, but just to have it as
Yeah,
a.
a number
I'm-
of these are new
Paper is like my
policies.
thing, like it's easy for me to,
You're so old.
I know I really am, it's tough.
I am.
I like paper.
That's why
You
I
do
make
too, right?
these.
That's
I
why we get
do.
along so well.
I do.
Okay,
Need
anything
to
else
feel
for
the
March?
paper.
Anything else?
No.
We're done.
All right, 10:42, meeting's adjourned.